We went to bed with Bitcoin at 26,800 and now it's at 27,800, briefly hitting 28,000 in just the last several hours. So what is going on? Let's have a look at what's happening with Bitcoin, those key levels in the short and the long term that Bitcoin needs, and how this pump is putting sustained pressure on the beloved altcoins. They are all heading down in the red. And if you're wondering what the hell is this guy on about, all my altcoins are in the green. Let's take a look at these and their pairs. The most key thing here, if you're going to be a long-term trader or investor in cryptocurrencies. All right, hit that like and subscribe. We are kicking it off back here in Australia. As you would have seen, the last video I was in Thailand, Phuket. I've had to put this video up today because Bitcoin's breaking through that key level that we were covering after the Bitcoin ETF trap. The trap played out to the downside, only barely this time. And it basically managed to hold its ground here with lowering volume on the weekend, of course, meaning there wasn't a lot of interest there. But what we've seen in these early hours of the next trading day, so basically Australia's open, Asia's open, and we're starting to see a flow through from Europe opening as well. And in the next several hours, we'll also see America open. And that is going to be the key piece of the puzzle here to see if when the American session opens, that the markets are going to hold their ground above the key level through the middle here on Coinbase, which is 27,567. You want a nice clean number. Call it 27,600. All right, so that's the short-term level that we were looking at on the weekend after that Bitcoin ETF trap. The market pumped on that ETF news on Friday, and then it died off again through the weekend. Basically, trading had ended. So that's the first key thing that we need to focus on. How many closes, daily closes, is Bitcoin going to achieve above 27,567? If Bitcoin starts to close under these levels, it has on a daily chart, we've got roughly 15 hours to go. Of course, check this out on your chart when you watch this video. If we start to close under that level, this was all part of the trap to the upside, bringing in unsuspecting traders, investors, and then we start to drop back down and test those lower prices again. However, the close is the key here. 15 hours to go. Closes above the 50% is going to be critical. Mark my words. You know that saying, mark my words on this one here, because this is going to be the run to 28,400. That's super key 50% level that takes us from July top to the September bottom. Remember, that is the level that we're all waiting for in the bigger picture. So this is the short-term level here, the more or less the 4-hourly chart, looking at Bitcoin trying to get back above 27,600 if you haven't heard it enough. But the daily chart, which is where Bitcoin bounced from, that beautiful 50% level of 26,700, you can see how many closes came in on the dot and slightly above it. So the 50% level, I'm going to say it time and time again, this is the critical indicator here to watch for support and resistance. The market's found support on the 50% of the daily move to the upside, which was the higher highs and the higher lows at this stage. And then we break it down to the shorter term time frame. This is why 50% is so critical right now for Bitcoin. That was the short-term bull target that we talked about in the previous video. The short-term bear target was getting back under the previous support at 26K. Held support very well at that 50%. So it's likely that we're going to now test this level, of course. Pretty straightforward. That's what we want to see over the next few days for Bitcoin. Now, from that, being that it's in the strong half at the moment of this range, then we can start to mount an attack to the upside, which is the 28,400. Once Bitcoin does that, you've heard me say it many, many times, that is going to be a key moment in this stage of Bitcoin climbing to higher prices, potentially testing 32,000 again, maybe even breaking 32,000 in 2023. Let's continue to watch how the game is playing out bit by bit. But what happens from that point is disaster for the altcoins. Anything that's measured against BTC is seeing red. You're seeing a lot of red here with altcoins that are basically going down against their Bitcoin value while Bitcoin is going on a run. And unfortunately, at this stage in the market, when Bitcoin then does have a pullback as well, or it goes on a bit of a decline here like it did just last week, 5 days in a row down, they also see red. So it's just very, very difficult for altcoins to make more gain than Bitcoin at this stage in the cycle. But there's always a but. But if you find a crypto that is doing better than Bitcoin, then keep watching that. That is going to be your golden ticket for the next cycle. Now, I'm not overly bullish on altcoins overall because the majority of them are going down. They're basically death by 1,000 cuts. And I want to get to that a little later in the video as well, just showing you how these things are absolute garbage. And hopefully you're not wasting or losing your money on these altcoins. But you will find needles in the haystack that are bucking the trend. So stay alert for that as well. So BTC, we have our levels at play, short term, longer term, watch the traps to the downside as well. On the futures contract, Bitcoin is getting close to 28,600. So this is the big player that is traded when the markets open, or at least the US session opens in a few hours time. Keep an eye on that as well, 28,000. Remember, everyone watching and waiting. This is the one that you hear Bitcoin has to fill the gap down at 21K. Bitcoin doesn't have to do anything. So if you ever hear anyone talk about Bitcoin has to come back and fill this gap at 21K, that's the gap that they're referring to right there. And it doesn't have to do that. Gaps to any direction, if they're not filled, are even stronger. That is the signal when it comes to trading gaps. So don't let anyone tell you that the gap must be filled. It might, but it doesn't have to be filled. There is no rule in the rule book that says investors, by and large, all investors are going to sell this market down and fill the gap and then come back up and push the price. How stupid and illogical does that sound? If you're a trader or investor of any more than a few months, it just doesn't make sense in the market that it must do something. Okay, the market doesn't have to do anything. So keep a watch out. 28.6 on the futures contract on the Coinbase, which is one of the highest volume spot traded exchanges here. Keep a watch out for 28,400. And the other thing I like here is that we've seen the price hit that 25,000 level twice now. It really must push away fast from this point. Otherwise, we start to lend our hand towards the possibility of getting rejected at 50% again and then coming back to test 25 once again. And if it tests it from a lower price again, or at least a lower high, you can obviously see how much weaker that is going to be to the downside and the possibility of it actually breaking down from that point. Then, if you're talking about the gap getting filled, you got much more probabilities of that happening. Ethereum is finding fresh lows against its Bitcoin values, so there are no cryptos saved here. There's nothing spared. It's also just found a new fresh low today as Bitcoin has pumped to the upside. The possible positive story to this is that the time is probably coming to an end for this down move. How far will that price be? That's what we're going to look at next. We've got our support zones at 5.2, basically 0.052 for ETH. You've got that very significant low that's come in here in June of 2022, and that's at a price of 4.9, so 4.9%. And then those lower levels, basically the support range here, those previous highs, that's at around 4%. So somewhere between that 4 and 5.2% for the ETH BTC value could actually spell the end to the losses for the majority of altcoins. So that's why this thing is so important to keep watching. But unfortunately, in the meantime, this is basically just wrecking altcoins left, right, and center. So let's have a look at some of the top 20 here before I get back to Bitcoin and what's going on in the traditional markets. Essentially, we've looked at what's going on with BTC, the key levels that dictate the market and say what's going to happen with altcoins, what's going to happen with the price, depending on where the bulls have got it, or the bulls or the bears have it. Now, for altcoins that are getting absolutely annihilated, I mean, it's a small thing, but it's a death by 1,000 cuts. And if we start with ADA, then we can really see what a death again by 1,000 cuts is. I tried to give a little acronym here, if that's what it is. ADA, BTC, A, D, A, BTC, you get it? Anyway, a death again by 1,000 cuts because ADA has been destroyed before in the previous bear market. Just lower and lower and lower and lower. It just continues on. And this time has been even worse for ADA. The bounces have been far less than what they were in the previous cycle. You got a bit bigger of a relief rally at those stages. But this time around, it's been bugger all. So the death by 1,000 cuts is really true to ADA. And this is essentially what's happening with the majority of cryptos. You might only see your crypto down by 0.4 or again 0.4 or maybe 2.3%, but it's just day after day after day. You get the deal. It just keeps going. That is just a chart on its way to hell. So that's what's looking like is happening with a lot of these altcoins. We can take another top 20 here, basically pick anything. Dogecoin, it is highly traded, 127 million, and something that has been catching the attention of a lot of people lately, which is Chainlink at 180 million. You can quickly take a look that it's basically the same story for all these altcoins. Doge on the way down, big pump, on the way down again, and potentially could take out some new lows. And if that happens, well, watch out to the downside, watch out to some of these other levels before it broke out in the previous cycle for support. Now, I put this up in 2021, the bleed out. I didn't expect it to take this long, but I mean, that's what's happened in its history. It takes years for Dogecoin to bleed out. All of the retail investors, they get bled out of this thing because nothing's happening. All they're here for is the excitement, and that will eventually come, which is why we keep a look out on ETH BTC. Keep a look at these areas. So that's Doge. In terms of Link as well, which is another highly traded coin by those in the game. This has actually been on a little bit of an uptrend over the last few months, but overall, it's basically another big death by 1,000 cuts if it's unable to break past the next highs here, and this continues on its trend. Now, the standout here has been Render. You can see it's up 4.5% against its Bitcoin value. If you look at it against its USD value, 7.17%. So it's beating Bitcoin. It's doing better gains than BTC. This is something to be concerned about in the short term. There's your massive wick that's taken out the tops and is now underneath those levels. However, still 15 hours to go. So this might just be a bit of a pullback, some profit taking. What you want to see is a close above those levels there, roughly about 680. That might be 0.0000680. So that's where you want to see those closes for Render for it to continue its strength to the upside. Now, if you're interested in finding stronger altcoins in the game that are potentially going to lead to bigger returns, check out the Investor Accelerator. The link is in the top of the video description. This is your premium membership, and we cover everything there. This is short-term, long-term investing to help you prepare for the bull market ahead in cryptos, in real estate, and the stock market before the biggest collapse of our lifetime to date. I expect that to happen probably sometime after 2026 based on many of the reasons and data points that we've looked at in the video in particular cycles. But in terms of preparation, that's what we want. We want to get those gains leading into the bull market so that we are ready and we have those profits aside for those big bear markets, which I think is coming after 2026. It's the recession, the depression, all that sort of stuff that everyone has been thinking is what's happening at this stage in the cycle. I think that's happened in 2022 and 2023. They couldn't be further from the truth because the market has been up and they've missed out on those gains to the upside if they've been waiting for the market to collapse. And so what we're seeing with the stock markets, just before we finish up, as they open, or at least the futures market opening, not too much is going on here. To be honest, we have just seen an open, a little push to the upside, and a close here. So I'm going to have more info on the US stock markets tomorrow once we've seen a little bit of data come through for this night's action. Okay, NASDAQ, same sort of thing, coming back to Tesla levels, roughly around 15,000 points. More update on the stock markets tomorrow. Let's see how Bitcoin goes. Keep your eyes out for that key level for a close tomorrow. Set your alerts, do all that sort of thing. And if you get a break above, if this thing keeps pumping, a break above 28,400, be on the lookout for those extreme abnormal moves. The markets don't like abnormal moves, as my brother talks about on his channel, Michael Pizzino. Abnormal moves are usually met with some sort of pullback as well. You've got those here, you've got this here, and we're starting to meet that again. And you've got these little ones here to the upside as well. Basically, something that is bigger than the range that the market has been used to. So keep a lookout for any sort of abnormal moves to the upside and where that market may close from that point. Like and subscribe. I'll be back again, hopefully very, very soon tomorrow. In fact, as I'm here in Australia, you've got videos popping up on your left-hand side. Go and check those out so you can stay up to date. Prepare for the bull markets and the big collapses. Link in the top of the video description. I'll see you again. Till then, peace out.